Hello and welcome to Rule of Carnage. This is a podcast where Glenn educates Mike about old 2000 AD comics, and sometimes we talk about miniatures games. This is me. I'm Mike Hutchinson. I design miniature games. That's Glenn. He also designs miniature games and many other sorts of games besides. We are here as part of a multi-episode celebration of reaching the grand old age of 2,000 subscribers. Thank you, everyone, for clicking that button and letting YouTube know that they should send this video to other people through the magic of their discovery algorithm. That's what really matters at the end of the day. And yeah, this channel's really fun because we get to consider our own thoughts about games design, and then having put them on the internet, you come and yell your ideas about games design either in the comments or in the Discord, and that is lovely. So we asked you to yell some ideas at us for questions, what we should answer. We have answered some of them in the previous episode. We will answer some in this episode, and some of the questions are so juicy that we'll only just get the beginnings of the mastication of them in this episode, and then we might spin them out into a further full digestion in a later episode. So thank you very much. Glenn, we got through a small smattering of them. Shall we crack on with all due haste?
I think we best ought. So going straight on from where we finished off the last video.
Mm-hmm.
Next question is the top thing you want to see a mechanic for, but have never seen successfully pulled off. And I would take that by extension in minis games.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing I keep wanging on about it, but I find like limited communication rules in games sort of endlessly fascinating for whatever reason. And it's tricky for a minis game because it's tricky to do without teams or co-op play. And they're a lot more sort of regular for various reasons in boxed games. But I'd like to see more fudging around with that sort of thing. And I've started fudging around with it in some of my decides because I find it so interesting. Like the way that people communicate is so sort of intricate and personal and builds up so quickly over time. Private language and all those sorts of things. I find endlessly fascinating whenever a game sort of goes there and starts playing around with that sort of thing. I'm an easy mark for that kind of thing. What about you, Mike? What?
Well, a lot of the things that sit in this area in terms of mechanics that I'd like to see that haven't, or things I'd like to see that haven't had good expressions. A lot of them link to like what video games are good at. That it is, and it ends up being quite hard to do in cardboard. So I'm not going to mention hidden movement, which is one of them, but the other one, because I was wrestling with this just this afternoon, is achievements. I'd love to have achievements in my game, or find games that have a cool kind of achievement loop, because it's this really nice way of like incentivizing specific or divergent ways of play, and then getting a cherry for doing it.
Mm.
But they pretty much all involve record keeping and bookkeeping that you always forget to do, and a computer can do that automatically and seamlessly, and you're like, oh, did I win for 5 melee combats or 3 this game? I can't remember. I forgot to record it at the time. So achievements is my answer.
Yeah, and that's one of those ones that legacy games can do rather well because they can make you record things and then you can go back to them in the future. Um, so previously we've done a video about one of the sort of cursed problems, one or two of the cursed problems in miniatures game design, and one of the questions was what other cursed problems might there be, and we're very much not going to get too much into this because I have a rack of subjects for Rule of Carnage, and there's like a list of there's a few pages of cursed problems I want to get to.
So for the gentle listener that has neither watched the original, was it GDC video that our conversation was inspired by, or our original conversation, quickly define cursed problem.
Okay, so a cursed problem is essentially, I guess it's essentially a thing that you want to do, but like because you want to do it, it paradoxically wrecks your game. Um, with sort of the short thing, a sort of self-contradictory game
Yeah,
design
that's
choice.
my understanding, is that cursed problem is a slightly tricky framing of it, because really the right expression of it is is a pair of design objectives that are mutually exclusive, but they don't look mutually exclusive at the start.
So I've got a list of some of the ones that I've got on the list to give examples of curse problems that we fully intend to have a conversation with, and just maybe to explain with an example. So the first one on this list is the skill gap. So you want players to get better as they play your game, but you want every player to be competitive against every other player. Also, you should be able to win the game until the last move of the game, but every previous main move should be relevant and important to the game. These are cursed problems. You kind of can't do both of them at the same time. And how do you get them to reconcile? Other ones, there's a whole bunch of cursed problems around multiplayer playing. Minis generally, I think minis are kind of a cursed problem in miniatures game. Impactful failure versus snowballing.
Well, yeah, the minis are sort of like the miniatures should matter, but you should be able to bring whatever kind of, you want to be able to inspire hobby, but also the miniatures should matter in the game rule. And I don't know that it's cursed necessarily, but it is on the borderlands there.
Yeah, and frankly, a lot of our videos are about things that are verging on sort of cursed problems in one way or the other. And that's why so many of the things we end up saying is like, oh, you pays your money and you takes your choice.
You got to pick a direction, and you've got to adjust your design goals to reflect that. You can't win all battles. You can't.
Yeah, and it is like when I first watched that video, like that sort of framed it in this way, I was a bit like, well, yeah, you have to pick something. You literally cannot have your cake and eat it.
I think the cursedness of them is when they look they look attractively doable. And they sort of feel like general wisdom should say that it should be possible to, easy to learn, it takes forever to master, that's not a cursed problem because chess proves it. But like it's like things that look seductively like they should be possible and turn out to just be like they just send your game design round and round in circles.
Things that are like contained within a single phrase, and when you unpack that phrase, you find out it basically holds a direct game design paradox. But
anyway, we'll get
there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them. We will be getting to them in the future. Don't worry. Those ones are already.
I need a little bit more intellectual attention before we tackle those.
So if you could get a tie-in novel for one of your games, which would it be? And this is
Space Kits. It would be Space Kits for me.
Mine would. Yeah,
there are no good orc novels.
Mine would be Puke Apocalypse, and that's mostly because it's the game where I've had the most sort of people creating the most of the world for it anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's like I sort of thought, Moonflight is one of my card games that has a very definite world to it. But it's like I don't want someone to write a novel in that world. If there's going to be a novel in that world, I want to write the novel for it.
Right.
And it's like SSO is like knocking off various sci-fi horror films. It's like it would be pointless writing a novel for that because it's like, well, what you're going to do is you're going to do a knockoff of Alien, because what I've done is a knockoff of Alien.
Get the Aliens junior novel.
Yeah, that would be largely pointless and a waste of time. But like Puke Apocalypse is a sort of wide enough, interesting enough sort of overall world that I haven't really cared to explore all the bits of that. I'd love to see somebody else have fun in it and play around in it.
Mm-hmm.
Space Gits, would you?
Well, I was wondering because sometimes when I'm working on a game, when I'm working on a game, I'll go seeking media. So I haven't done my research to find like, are there any 40k novels that have got lots of orcs in it? I'm assuming there is a couple here and there, but none of them from the protagonist's point of view, I assume.
Well, there's that. I don't know. Do you see the what was it called? Mork Orc, the Orc Mork Borg sort of spin-off thing.
Oh, nice. No, I haven't seen
where
that.
Everything is called like Faith Blasters and Nut Stompers in all caps and stuff. Favorite shift in miniatures wargaming of the past decade. The opening up of the hobby, just a crack to sort of a broader sort of range of people, I think, is the thing that makes me immensely happy. Um, I think the shift to, I mean, I think independent, it's hard to know because like when you're younger and you don't see as much what's around you. But
Yeah.
I think there's been a big shift towards independent designers and independent like companies and stuff. And I think that's something that's very, very, very exciting. Although that might just be sort of what do you call it, a Mandela effect for me personally.
It
Um,
might be because it's interesting because like when I was a kid, I went like when we got the internet, one of the first things I did was went and downloaded loads of like alternative rules for different orc units and like whole sort of campaign packs for Skaven campaigns in Woofup and stuff like because there was loads of creative people publishing content on the internet. Um, like as far back as I can remember having the internet. So it's easy to sort of say, well, there's platforms and self-publishing these days is much easier and stuff. But like as soon as the tools existed, nerds were publishing Skaven supplements. Like it was like overnight.
yeah,
And I
but
think now like the difference is, you know, there's just a few more places where you can discover things, and there's a few more ways of making um, money. But actually, I think this is where the sort of future is super interesting, which is not to get kind of too misty-eyed or Bible thumping about this. Like um, drive-through RPGs fine, but like when Steam arrived, it broke open the indie video game market with a few things. And the thing that it did was it had this like one-stop distribution and discovery platform, which was super good for players, super good for developers, had all the sort of social and ding dong kind of engagement and retention tools. And there just isn't that place for miniatures games right now. There's nowhere that does all of the bits and bobs that it needs to do. Like Drive Through RPG does an amount of that, but it's not a great discovery surface, and it's not very good for like socially recommending. And it's not, when you look at a game on Steam and it says, "Oh, Mike played this in the last 3 months," you're like, "Oh, okay, let me take a second look because a friend of mine's taken a like." To a degree, publishing indie war games hasn't gotten enormously more sophisticated than when I was downloading them in 1995 off of other people's like single HTTP server stuff. So I don't know, like, yeah, I don't know. I think there is an element that, of course, it's true, but also I think like we are nowhere close to where we could be in this particular niche of the hobby in terms of being um, enabled to like as creators reach the right audience and hit them with cool stuff.
so your favorite shift is
My favorite shift in wargaming at I don't know. This one stumped me a bit because every time I think something is cool and new, I go back and read Donald Featherstone and realize it's old and cool.
hmm,
So I don't know. I think for me, it's sort of a reflection of the overall tabletop gaming revolution, which is there's just so much good content to look at that like the experience of going through writing the textbook with you and getting a chance like having an excuse to go and read dozens and dozens and dozens more rule sets. There's just loads of great people doing loads of great work, and much more of it is getting proper kind of professional published treatment. So I think much like board games as a whole, it's like the choice has never been better, and that is a double-edged sword. But like, yeah, that's my favorite development right now is the choice of amazing stuff.
cool. So after much playtesting, my game is finished. What now? Um, Christ knows, because finishing is what happens when somebody takes the game out of like, no. It's like when I run out of time, it's finished. I
And
don't.
sometimes not even, Glenn. Sometimes not even.
Yes, occasionally not even that. It's like, I mean, yeah. When I finish the game, I'll let you know. Um, yeah, I mean this is sort of something that we've talked about like a few times, the various paths towards you know putting a game out there, publishing it. I mean, I, the short answer is it depends on what you want to do with it. To be
Yeah,
honest
yeah.
with you, and there's nothing. there's no wrong answers on this one. If what you want to do with it is play it with some mates, then you play it with some mates, and that's what you did. If what you want to do is like have it published by somebody, you set about pitching that thing and you run it around conventions, and you get so up in the face of the guys from Osprey that it's easier to just publish it than to live with you anymore. And if you want to like base a company on it, you start getting some quotes from Longpack. There's, I mean, there are so many steps from when a game is like mechanically written, it is in its manuscript form, potentially depending on what you want to do with it from then on. That's in many ways like maybe the second step of the journey, depending on where you want to end up with, at. Find somebody you trust who's done some of the things that you want to do and ask them how they did it, is the short answer. And that's the short answer to every previous part of what you're doing, but that's the best thing I'd say for that. Mike?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, I think, we glibly referred to it at the beginning, but like, I tend to start all of that decision making about what I'm going to do with the game, what kind of success will feel like, whether I need to start talking to artists, whether I need to start thinking about my own layout or production, whether I need to start getting a pitch together to pitch it. I do all that before the game, long before the game's finished, if the game is ever finished. Like, Gaslands was pitched to Osprey when it was 8 pages long. It isn't 8 pages long now. Most of the work happened after that part of the puzzle fell into place. I've got games right now which are 8 pages long, and I will work on them for a bit, and then I will stop working on them until I figure out what I'm going to do with them. And if I figure out I'm going to self-publish them, then I'll work on them some more. And if I figure out that I want to pitch them around, then I'll pitch them around, but I won't work on them until I've got a kind of reason to move them further towards the illusion of finished.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things where it's like, and this is super easy to say, having like been doing this for a little while, but it's something that you learn like after you've been doing it for a little while, like where a game is going to go early on, and to make a decision about where the game is going to go early on. And so the other thing, what you do now when you finish the game is start writing the next one. Because you may as well keep busy while you're trying to pitch that thing around and get rejection letters. Right, who is doing the most interesting work in Minis War Games today that isn't us? And this is one that I think might end up having more than one conversation on it.
Yeah, I'd love to have a longer conversation about
And
pulling apart some of the interesting stuff that's going on.
because I've got some fairly good answers on this one, because it is like my short answer is everyone. I mean, Jesus Christ, there's so many interesting people doing interesting work. It's like I was sort of thinking about it, and it's like that Gav Thorpe recently did that Slip Runners for Electi Studios, which is a spaceship game with inertial movement on the, and it's like, it's a genuinely, I'm not being funny, but Gav Thorpe doesn't need to put that much effort into doing something for a little independent designer at his point. And it's a genuinely very inventive set of rules that has genuinely sort of looked at a very niche sort of thing and gone like, well, here's another interesting way of doing this very specific thing, and it's like that. And that's just one name. It's like that. And I want to shout out to various people from our Discord. Like, when we looked at it on the channel, Mars Code Aurora, I think, is a great game. I think Torch and Shield, is extremely interesting. But I just so many companies are doing just really, really interesting stuff, and we'll have to like give this a full conversation. I don't want to, because I feel like if I start saying particular things or particular names, it's going to feel like, well, what about that one? It's like, well, yeah, it's because I'm trying to do it in 30 seconds, and I'm not gonna. Is there like do you just want to give?
Yeah, I mean, like, I totally agree with everything you've said. So, like, the one name that popped out during our research, where I picked up one of his books that I'd been meaning to pick up for ages, read it, and was just like, oh, this is really good. There are so many things I want to steal here. Was Brent Spivey's Rogue Planet, which like it's like 10 years old now, and like no one has ingested the cleverness that that game is throwing out there for potential robbing. So I think it's also fun because I think that I don't know what it is, but like I feel like the digestion and circulation of role-playing game mechanics is a bit swifter and better developed than it is for miniature game mechanics. So I think like part of this conversation I want to be like, how can we be sort of spreading this juice around better and kind of learning from each other faster, and pushing the form forward faster. So yeah, Brent
Yeah.
Spivey, go buy Rogue Planet. It's got at least 5 incredibly interesting ideas in it.
Yeah. How have games and hobby culture changed since you first miniature gamed as an adult?
As an adult.
I mean, yeah, I read that. It's like I'm not. I mean, so
Well,
my
he never stopped.
yeah. I mean, I did. I stopped. There was a period when I stopped, but my return to like minis gaming was when I was like 17, 18, and I stopped for a fairly short period, all things considered. um Again, I think that the hobby is trending towards welcoming sort of openness, which I'm vastly in favor of. I genuinely want to see more people and more subjects, and more sorts of things. And I talk about this repeatedly on the channel,
Yeah.
but it makes me very sad when I look at the range of boxed board games subjects that I can sort of engage with, and the range of subjects I can engage with in RPGs, and I look at the range of subjects I can engage with a minis game, and it breaks my heart. It makes me so very sad.
Okay.
And I really think that the hobby and the culture around this game is starting to move incrementally towards thinking that there might be more sort of going on out there.
Mm.
And I've seen it creeping along over the last whatever 20 years of gaming. Not as much as I'd like, but again, I feel like I've at least seen more games trying to figure out interesting ways of doing the stuff we've always been doing, in my opinion. Um, and with it, a few people wondering about whether we can do things we haven't always been doing with it.
Mm.
That's my opinion, Mike.
Yeah, it's tricky to pin the answer to that question down because like when I rejoined miniature wargaming, I fell into like there was a brief bubble of sort of playing a couple of GW games and then discovering that there was a club. And when I discovered there was a club, then I basically fell into Malifaux for about 4 years. And so like my experience has been like as a kid playing that one very different sort of game, like never really playing the correct rules of Necromunda or 40k, into like an environment where returning to the hobby I was playing a game very precisely surrounded by people who were also trying to interpret the game very precisely and compete in a very precise and high quality way. And then I moved away from that as I started doing my own design work. So I think it's like my gaming experience has had these 3 eras now, and it's difficult for me to like the things that I keep thinking, oh, well, maybe it's more like this, and maybe it's more like that. I think are more to do with my particular lens and experience, rather than a general observation about where the miniature games hobby is now compared to like 10 or 15 years ago. It's tricky. I mean, I suppose the biggest thing is just like uh, the speed of um, the speed of content was always set by Games Workshop's White Dwarf, and so it was already quite quick. It was a monthly turnaround, but nobody else had that sort of turnaround of content. And then, like, even as I joined the hobby in, I guess I started probably wargaming again in about 12 or 13. Like I feel like the freneticness of the announcements of new stuff that I have to look at is nearing apocalyptic at the moment.
Mm.
So I think that like, and I've been thinking about this a fair amount about like in the wake of the X-wing is dead sort of announcement. I've been really thinking a lot about like this content sort of what's the word I'm looking for? It's like
Sure.
content flywheel, content kind of roller coaster that everyone like once a game gets put on a little content roller coaster, like if the roller coaster ever slows or stops, it's like the game is dead. It's like, well,
Mm.
it never was, and it doesn't have to. And it's only if you say that it is only alive by shouting about it every 4.5 minutes that it dies when you stop shouting about it every 4.5 minutes. So I think that that has always been true. And like when well, has it already? Like the survival of specialist games from DW maybe sort of said, well, there was a period where even when a content roller coaster stopped for a game, everyone was like, no, we're still going to play Blood Bowl. There's no question about that. And I don't know if that's changed now that the noise is so much louder that it's very difficult to create an evergreen feeling game if you accidentally start talking about it as if it's a content roller coaster game.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and it's like I remember back to like, and I flick through old copies of like White Dwarf, and it seems a much more sort of sedate time when it was like there wasn't as much competition, and if they did a release once every 6 months, you felt like, well, this is quite reasonable and quite
I've got
okay.
enough time to paint that. Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's like, and I remember when Malifaux came out, and it felt like I could pick up the new unit, the new set of minis for the new unit that's coming out every 3 months, maybe. And now it feels like, yeah, a lot of games have to be like, well, here's something, and there's another something coming up in 2 weeks' time, and then there'll be more somethings in like a month after that. Um, Okay, well, that's gonna, I think, be that for this conversation.
Oh, ironic. Let us step off the content roller coaster for this week.
Absolutely, the idea of it being a content roller coaster we're very
Got to
much
take the
on
wind out of the air.
is rather
Not
sobered
go and
me.
sit down and have a cup of tea instead.
We've got more of these. I think we'll have one more. I think we've got enough for one more of these conversations. This could be a tripartite conversation for this particular subject. Again, as we said, this is we're doing this because we've got to the heady heights of a mighty 2,000 subscribers, which we didn't never expected with this sort of bizarrely niche things that we choose to talk about. So
I mean,
thank you very
we
much.
barely upload thumbnails, so
I know
thanks for sticking with us.
I've decided to start doing
I know,
them.
I've noticed that. I think it's good.
It's amusing. Um,
Beveled some edges. It's nice.
well, so look, thank you very much to everybody who's gotten this to this this point. Please do swing down to the comment section. Look, we said last video, give us a question for next time we do one of these. We've got a few videos out now. Why not swing down to the comment section if you are a subscriber or if you're not, and let us know which of our previous videos you found particularly enlightening and useful. And then
That will
maybe
help newer folks trawl through the absolute mire of mislabeled videos.
there is something of a back catalogue. They're wonderfully labelled and they're very clear, and you'll easily find what you need to.
Yes, sorry, that's what I meant. Absolutely.
Quite a few played, but look, swing down to the comment section and say something to us. We want to get to 2,000 and a bit subscribers, so hit the subscribe button. And give us a like while you're about it, and follow across.
Yeah, that's our target. It's 2030 is our target.
I think last time I looked before doing this, and we're at 2085. So 2000. So we're on our way to 2,100. Why not get us there by the end of this video? Swing over the Discord, ask us some questions there, contribute to the next video, sling over to our various Patreons and give us money, and go to the places where we sell our games and give us money in a different way for another thing. And until the next Rule of Carnage, where we'll continue talking about these questions that we've gotten from our Discord, it'll be a thank you and goodbye. So thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye. Cheers.